Uh, I am Ankur Joshi, Associate Professor in Community and Family Medicine, AIIMS Bhopal. Today we are going to discuss on a very important and fundamental topic which is known as variables and what are their types and how they can be summarized. Uh, so as we know from our PMT days, element is defined as the substance which consists of atoms, and chemically they are the simplest substance which cannot be broken down further by simple chemical methods, but there are certainly some special methods by which one element can be changed into another element. Similarly, if we analog these element of chemistry into epidemiology and biostatistics, then variables are the photons or the substance which consist of information in its simplest form, and by simple methods or as such they cannot be broken down into more basic information, but there are certain ways and certain methods by which we convert one variable into another variable. Seems confusing? Okay. Let's view the phenomena from the another perspective. So variable is something which changes. The fundamental and keyword is change. That changes from person to person, from observation to observations. You may think in terms of height. It changes from person to person. You may think in terms of hemoglobin status. It changes from person to person. It may also be thought of the result of some force, or itself it is a force which is actually causing a changes into the another variable. Okay, so think in terms of obesity. Obesity can be measured in terms of BMI, in terms of waist circumference, in terms of waist hip ratios. All these variables like BMI, waist circumference or waist hip ratio changes from person to person, and these are the some factors of force which causes to change in another variable. So as we assume that there are two persons, the first person is with a BMI of 21 and the another person is a BMI of 29 or say 30. Then without knowing anything, if I tell you, then what will be the who will be having the more probability of getting affected from hypertension? So definitely a person who is having a BMI more. So so see, the first variable here is obesity, which is term in terms of BMI, and another variable is systolic blood pressure, right? So BMI is forcing systolic blood pressure to change. Similarly, it is a characteristics of interest. So variable can also be thinking in terms of characteristics of test. So what do I mean by characteristics of test? Just think in terms of proportion of ANC having HbA1c less than 7 gram per deciliter. What does it mean? It means how many of pregnant females are suffering from the severe anemia. So it is a characteristics of interest. So here the keyword is changes, and it itself it is a force, or causing the another variable or forcing another variable to changes. So now we understand variables are nothing but actually are the things we are measuring, like height, weight, HbA1c values, hemoglobin values, pulse rate, creatinine values, anything we are measuring, or we are collecting data on that, or we are interested to know the value of that. or we know we want to understand our data, or we want to understand what is going on, and we want to we want to draw our inferences, we want to find our answer. So variables are fundamental and key things, and in order to understand the phenomenology, it is very important to understand the key variables. Let's try to understand it with an example. Okay, so we all know about the visual acuity. So there may be different way from crude to very scientific way to understand or to know about the visual acuity of a person. The simplest way can be that we can say the vision is normal and vision is not normal. So variable here is in these conditions become normal, not normal, normal, not normal. Okay. Then we can assign into a grade a normal vision, a vision with some kind of visual impairment, severe visual impairment, and total blind. So here we are having an intuitive grade with us. So we understand the person who are having a severe visual impairment will be having more difficulties compared to the person who is having some visual impairment. The another way, which is more scientific, we all know we move to a Snellen chart and we decide our visual acuity from 6 by 6 to 6 by 18, 6 by 18 to 6 by 60, 6 by 60 to 3 by 60, 3 by 60 to no perception of light, and so on. So the fundamental message what I want to convey over here is the same characteristics is measured by a number of ways. Okay, just moving to the type of variable, it is important to understand that data can be inferred from two perspectives, a qualitative perspective and a quantitative perspective. So here we can see three persons. The person 1 is having a blood pressure of 120 by 80 mm of Hg. The person 2 is having by 134 and 68 mm of Hg, and person 3 is having 160 by 100 mm of Hg. If I ask you, whom would you like to call first in your clinic? Your answer will be definitely person number 3, because he is having more systolic and diastolic pressure compared to person 1 and person 2. Okay, now if I classify those person, then there, and we have operation, suppose we have a operational definition of hypertension as 120 140 by 90. It is a crude definition, and then I say there are two person who is in stage 1 and another person is in stage 2. So it gives you, if I tell you again without actually telling you their actual BP, if I tell you there are two person, the person 1 is with stage 1 hypertension and person 2 is with stage 2 hypertension, then definitely without knowing their actual BP, you would like to call the person 2 before, you would like to see the person 2 before, you would like to assign the priority to person 2 before than person 1. So here you are having a notion of quality that stage 2 is more dangerous than stage 1. So this type of data where we are having a notion of quality is known as qualitative data, and where we are having an actual number is known as quantitative data. Okay, let's back to the business. So basically there are four type of variable: nominal variables, ordinal variables, interval, and ratios variable. Nominal and ordinals, as the name suggests, nominal means name. Here we have qualities. So these two are qualitative variables, nominal and ordinal, but qualities cannot be graded. What does it mean? There are no order preserving information. So we cannot know what is the order, like color of iris. It can be black, it can be brown, it can be blue. Presence or absence of constipation. Ram, Rahim, Ghanshyam, Robert. So these are merely name. Site of malignancy. Lung, stomach. So these are site of malignancies. So vomiting present or absent. So we cannot assign these variables into a grade. But when we have the order preserving information like stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3 carcinoma of cervix, we all know about the TNM classification. So as we move to the stage 4, it has more probably more metastasis, and if we likewise if we divide mild, moderate and severe hypertension, so here we do have a notion of the order. So we know a person who is having a severe hypertension is at more risk of cardiovascular event compared to mild or moderate hypertensions. These ordinal scale actually give us a notion of quality and give us we use them for our convenience when quantitative scale are not available or are actually difficult to interpret. Getting bored? Okay, it is the time to visit Sikkim. So here you can see it is written that you are at the 0 point and height is showing it's something like 4,800 meter. What does it mean? Is it really 0? Is it the end of the world? No. It is a virtual 0, which simply means it is the last metalled road and permissible limit for the tourist, beyond which the entry for the civilians is not allowed. So it is not a absolute 0, but a arbitrate 0. So it is the time from moving from the qualitative variable to quantitative variable. Like we had nominal and ordinal variable in the qualitative scale, we have interval and ratio variable in the quantitative or metric scale. So in interval and ratio, we actually have the true numbers which are measured and have constant and which have the property of equidistance between values. So that what do I mean by equidistance or equal distance? If I say the distance between 1 kilometer to 2 kilometer is same as when we compare this distance with 2 kilometer to 3 kilometer and 3 kilometer to 5 kilometer, and the difference between 100 to 110 is equal to the difference between 120 to 130. But here the important thing is what I want you to understand, that the 0 point is not an absolute 0. It is an arbitrary 0, like we had in the Sikkim. So if I take a IQ test, then the difference between 100 and 100 of 10 equal to the scoring distance between 120 to 130, but this is not the true 0 of this test. And the IQ of 140 is not the twice as high as IQ of 70. So the 0 here, it is a relative 0. But when we go to the higher form, of metric scale, which is known as ratio, now we have the absolute 0. So if I say parity 0, what does it mean? Nullipara. If I say height from the sea level, what does it mean? An absolute 0. So if I say the person is having a weight of 100 kilo, he is twice as heavy as a person who weighs 50 kilo. Similarly, the pulse rates, the respiratory rates are the example of ratio variable. So now we understand, we know there are four kind of variable: the nominal, ordinal, both of which are the type of qualitative variable. Nominal means name without any order preserving information. Ordinal variable will have an order preserving information. Interval variable will have the order preserving information as well as actual number and equidistance property. And the ratio will have an order preserving information, a number with the equal distance, and the absolute zero. Just to summarize, till now what we have learned is this, that the variable are or can be broadly classified into categorical or qualitative variable and numerical or quantitative variables. The categorical or qualitative variables can be further subdivided into two categories: the nominal and ordinal variable. The nominal variables are the variables where the categories are mutually exclusive and unordered, while the ordinal variables, we have the mutually exclusive category but they are ordered, like gender, blood group, eye color or marital status will be the example of nominal variables where they are unordered but they are mutually exclusive. They are so either male or female. The blood group with AB positive or O positive, eye color with brown or black, but we cannot assign a order to it. But while in the ordinal variable, the categories are mutually exclusive but they are ordered as well, like the socio-economic status where we have the class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or the education level. But when we comes to the numerical or quantitative variables, we have two type of variable, where we can count integers or where we count continuous variable. When we count integers, it is actually an interval variable. Where we count continuous variable, it is actually, when we have the absolute value, it is a type of ratio variable. To further understand it, I have taken the example from a research paper where it was studied where if there is any kind of relationship between soya food intake and risk of endometrial carcinoma among Chinese women. So here we can see the different type of characteristics given on your left. So number of women, mean age, education, marital status, per capita income, number of pregnancy, cancer present or absent, oral contraceptive use. So all these are variable. Now we understand what I have written over here. Cancer among first degree relative, oral contraceptive use or regular exercise, they are actually nominal variable, while education is here, which is in green, it is an ordinal variable. Number of pregnancies, none, it means there is an absolute zero, so it is a ratio variable. So once we understand about variable, it becomes easier for us to decide what kind of further statistical treatment what we want to give to these variables. So any test is nothing but the comparison between variable. So if we are comparing a nominal with nominal variable, we will use a chi-square test. Similarly, if we are comparing a nominal with numerical variable, we will use t-test, and so on. So the message only in this slide is that what are the statistical treatment you are going to assign depends on the variables in which you are interested and how you want them to be work in an interacted fashion. So it is very important to understand your key variable before doing any type before drawing any type of inference out of it. This is a very interesting slide. Now we understand from nominal to ratio, complexities of the variable increases. Okay, and there are different type of summary measures available, like frequency distributions, median and percentile, mean and standard deviation, and coefficient of variation. The fundamental thing which we need to remember, once the variable which is most complex, the ratio, it can be summarized by all kind of measure. It can be summarized by frequency, it can be summarized by median and percentile, or mean, or by coefficient of variable. But if we go down in the complexity of variable, there will be certain kind of restriction. So once, for example, if we talk in terms of ordinal variable, it can only be summarized by frequency distribution and median value. Why? Because although it has an order, it does not have the number which are situated at the equidistance. So if we don't have the number which are situated at the equidistance, it will be illogical and irrational to take the average of it. We can only assign them into an order, so we can take a median. But when it comes to interval variable, we can also summarize it by the median, and we can summarize it by the mean. When it comes to nominal variable, where there is no order preserving information, where there is no order, no number, so what we can do? We can only summarize it in terms of frequency, like absent or present. At last, let me tell you this story. So if we have 3 runners who are participating from the 3 different states of Madhya Pradesh, each runner is assigned a color coded t-shirt to differentiate from each other, and the color of the t-shirts are blue, red and green, then this is a nominal scale. The winner is declared along with the declaration of the first runner-up and second runner-up based on the criteria. Then who reaches the destination first, second and last, the rank order of the runner is a ordinal state. During this tournament, 3 consequent races were arranged at the time interval of 10 days. It is an interval state. And the time spent by each runner in completing the race, it is a ratio scale. So this is the take home message. In today's class, we knew about 4 types of variable: the nominal, the ordinal, the interval and the ratio. The nominal had only named, ordinal had name and order, interval had name and order and the distance was meaningful, and the ratio had the name, the order, the equidistance, and there was a absolute zero. When we want to summarize these variables, it is important to understand the complexity of the variable. The variable which is most complex can be summarized by all the manner. It can be summarized by the frequency, it can be summarized by the median, it can be summarized by the mean, it can be summarized by the ratio. But once we step down in terms of complexity, we have restricted choice of the summary measures. Thank you very much for listening me patiently.